Welcome to Rges Algebra 2, Lesson 10A. This would be 2.11. And so basically this is, again, factoring a trinomial into binomial pairs. And so there is actually no new concept, just lots and lots of practice, especially with your coefficient in front of the first number. So I'm going to do some of the even problems. You've been assigned 1 through 39 odd. I'm going to just walk you through many of these, maybe 10 of these or so, because there's a lot of things to think about, and so I want to remind you of all of them. In our first example here, first off, this tells me that my middle terms, when I'm thinking FOIL, my outer and inner, this would be the first term, this would be the second term combined, and this would be the third term, right? And so my product is going to be 4 on my third term. But my combination, because it's negative on the third term, it means that one of the pairs is going to be, one of the outer and the inner would be a negative and the other would be a positive. So my difference, the middle term then represents the difference. So I'm looking for a product of 4 and a difference of 7. Okay, now that difference is not because I have a number on the first term, a coefficient on the first term. That difference will have to represent the multiplication of the outer and the inner and not just the products of the 4. Okay, now because this 2, so that's a lot of information right there that I just gave you. Because the product here on my first term, or my coefficient on my first term is 2, and it only has one pair that can survive, or that can make 2 survive, I would have to have 2x and x. So that makes it a little easier. Now, the products that can make up my 4 would be 1 and 4, or 2 and 2. So I'm going to already have several choices here. And then the outer-inner combination would want a difference of 7. So you just start plugging them in your mind, whether you do it on paper or not. You're plugging them in your mind, and you're switching them around to see what works. This one, the product would be of the outer would be 8, and the product of the inner would be 1, and that is a difference of 7. So I actually hit it right correctly from the beginning, but I might not have done that. So let me show you some of the other potential things I could have done. Maybe instead I would have put it this way: the 4 first and then the 1, and then my product, the outer and the inner, would be 2x and 4x. That is not a difference of 7x. Or I could have instead started with a 2 and a 2 here, and then I would have the outer and the inner combination being 4 and 2, and that is not a difference of 7. So there's only one way to combine them. So I'll go back. I happened to do it right the first time, but we'll go back and pick that up again and talk about signs. And that's really what you have to do. You just have to experiment until you get the right combination. Now, for my sign, it's going to be positive 7 when I'm done. So my outer is 8, my inner is 1. So I would want my positive to go with the outer and my negative with the inner. And then you always check by foiling back, and that would be get you the right answer. Now let's look at another example. Again, I just want to give you many examples here. Let's see if we had, what I'm thinking now is my potential products. Over here it would be 1 and 5. There's only one combination. Here it would be 1 and 6, or 2 and 3. I'm looking for a product of 6. That's what I got. And a difference, because this is negative, so it represents one sign has to be positive and one sign has to be negative, a difference of 13. So again, I would put a 5x, a 1x, Let's see, if I did a 6 here and a 1 here, I would get 30 and 1. That would not work for me. If I did a 6 here and a 1 here, I would get a 5 and a 6. That would not give a difference of 13. And I'm writing this down. You probably would do it in your head, but if I did a 2 here and a 3 here, I would get 15 and 2. That would give me a difference of 13. So I know because of this negative that my signs are different. I know because of this negative that the larger combination, in this case the outer, which is going to be 15, has to have the negative sign associated with that, and the other one would have the positive sign. Let's look again at number 5. Wait, I'm trying to do the even ones actually. Trying to be a little quicker here. Now my product choices here would be 1 and 15 or 3 and 5. My product choices here would be 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. I need a difference of 9. Difference because the signs will have to be opposite. Okay. Well, I could do a 15, in which case I would get, I kind of start doing this mentally. I'd say, okay, 1 and 15, I could go 15 and 6. 15 and 6. Whoops, you know what? I made a mistake here. Okay, and this is a common mistake to make, so let's make sure that we look at it here. Let me go back. In one sense, I'm glad I made it, because before you start in on your binomial factoring, you always ask yourself the question, can I have a common factor? And in this case, you do, actually. A 3 goes into all 3 of those terms. So you would take out your 3, leaving you with 5x squared minus 3x minus 2. And now I would have my 5 and my 1 as my only possibilities, 2 and 1 my only possibilities for the third term. And so my only question is, how do I combine it? Do I want a 10 and a 1? That would not give me a difference of 3. Or do I want a 2 and a 5? That would give me a difference of 3. Opposite signs because of this. The difference would be negative, so I would want my negative 5 and my positive 2. And that would be the answer there. Let me do at least several more. No common factor here, so 27 could be 1 and 27, or 3 and 9, and that would be it. 4 doesn't go in, 5 doesn't go in, 6 doesn't go in, etc. all the way up. Okay, and 14 would have factors of 1 and 14, or 2 and 7. I need a combination that will give me a difference of 3. Okay, so if I had 27, I'm sorry, this is b to the 4th, okay? So I'm going to have something b squared, right? And b squared. So if I have 27 and 14, that's not going to do it. 27 times 14 is going to be way too big, so moving on to my 3 and my 9. Well, actually, I could move on to 1 and 27 with my 2 and 7, and I'm going to get still something very, very large here, 27 times 2 or 27 times 7. That's not going to work. So I've eliminated this mentally. You can do it on paper. And moving down to the next one, I can have 9 and 42. That's way too big. Or let's say I'm going to have the 9 times 14. That's still very big. So let's move on to now this pair and this pair. Okay, I could have 6 and 63. That's no good. And I could have 18 and 21. There's a good combination. So I'm going to have a 3b squared and a 9b squared. See how I'm doing this in my mind? I'm trying to illustrate how I would do it mentally. And I said, okay, the 3 times the 7 and then, whoops, what did I do? Oh yeah, 3 times the 7 and the 2 times the 9. Okay, so let's make sure that works again. For my first term, that would be 27b to the 4th. For my outer and inner, I'd have 21b squared and 18b squared. Their difference, they're going to be opposite signs. The difference is 3. So I like this. It's -3, so my larger, my 21, which is the larger of these combinations, is going to be the one that's negative, and this is going to be the positive one. And that's my answer. Okay. Let's see, let's look at 10. So again, I'm trying now to show you how I do them mentally. And of course, that's what that's the goal for you to start doing that. Okay, check out. Whoops, I almost didn't. Check out first. Do I have a common factor? And I do. I can factor out a 2. So let's do that. We'll get 3. This makes your life much, much easier, and plus you'll have a complete factoring, okay, which you need before you're done. So it's always best to do it ahead of time. Now, my only combinations are going to be 3 and 1, so that makes it a lot easier. Okay, my only combinations over here are going to be 2 and 1, and I need a sum, because this says the signs are the same. They're both going to be negative, and the sum is going to be 5. So if I have a 2 and a 1, if I made this the 2 and this the 1, I'm going to get minus 6x minus 1x. I'm sorry, I did not do it right. Let's do it again. There we go. See, this is why it's always important to factor back. I'm going to get a minus 3x minus 2x. That would be minus 5x, so that checks. And then negative times negative is positive, and 2 times 1 is 1. So always check back with your factoring. Let's see, that was number 10. Let's just do one more. And of course, you're going to have lots of practice on your own as you work these out. No common factor here, so I'll have possibilities of 1 and 10, 2 and 5, possibilities of 1 and 6, 2 and 3, and I need a difference, because they're going to be opposite signs, of 11. Well, let's see. Here I could get a 1 and a 60. That's not going to work. Or switching it around, I could get a 10 and a 6. That does not work. Combining with this, again, I shouldn't have crossed it out too soon, so it does not work with this first combination over here. But let's check on the second combination. I could get a 2 and a 30. That does not give me a difference of 11. Or I could get a 20 and a 3, and that doesn't, so it still doesn't work. So I'm going to end up with 2x squared and 5x squared. Now, how will the others fit in? Do I want a 1 and a 6 for my second term, or do I want a 2 and a 3? Well, let's start doing some more mental math. If I put a 1 here and a 6 here, I would get 12 and 5. That does not give me a difference. So let's take those 2 away. If I do the 6 here and the 1 here, I would get 30 and 2. That does not give me a difference of 11. So take those away, and now I'm with the 2 and the 3. If I put the 2 there and the 3 there, I get 6 and 10. Okay, 6 and 10 gives me a difference of 4, so that's not working. If I put a 3 and a 2, that way I would get 15 and 4, and that gives me the difference of 11. So that's my only combination that will work. Okay, and it happened to be the last one, so that was a good illustration for you. Okay, now what about signs? I know the signs are different. One's positive, one's negative. It's negative on my middle term. negative 11. So my larger number, there's 15 and 4. The larger group is the 15, so that's the one that needs to be negative. So I'll put the negative associated with the inner group and the positive associated with the outer group. And then, of course, always FOIL back to make sure your answer is correct. And so you'll have lots of practice. I recognize that they take some time, but you can always tell whether you've done it correctly by just foiling it back again, at least to that after the common factor has been taken it out. Okay, have fun with that, and we'll see you on Wednesday.